Hey y'all, I'm Stefan Medley. This is Medley's Minute on GCD Network. This is the first of our shows. It's going to be every Sunday at 6 from 6 to 6:30 Eastern. So that's 5 to 5:30 if you're happen to be in my district or in my state. This one is going to be a whole lot of me talking about me. In the future, I want to talk about what y'all want to hear me talk about. There's a contact form on my website. If there's an issue you want to hear my take on, fill it out. And has the added advantage of you'll get to hear updates on the campaign. So kind of a win-win for everyone. So my introduction, born and raised here in Texas, Austin area specifically, had a little stint in Ohio, but we won't talk about that. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I did 5 years. They kicked me out for a bum knee, which is fair. That time with the Marine Corps, though, gave me the opportunity to see a lot of different styles of leadership. I got to see what worked, what didn't work, what made the people you're leading happy, what made the people you're leading unhappy. It was, not the career that I'd hoped it was going to be, but it was very informational. I got to absorb a lot of knowledge through osmosis, so to speak. Part of my upbringing here in Texas, you're going to see me pause and say a lot, for better or for worse. I'm not good at thinking off the cuff. I think a lot about what I say before I say it. It tends to be a good thing. It's not really a problem often, but you're going to see a lot of, gears turning before words start coming out. Keeps me from saying things I don't mean, which is kind of nice. But part of that comes from my upbringing, where I was raised to be honest, to be truthful, to be considerate, listen to what other people say, take that into consideration, think before you do or say anything. And that's not led me astray very often. That was something I would continue to do once in office. The moral compass that I have established for myself, my personal values, are one of the reasons why I'm running. I don't see a lot of honesty and openness in our federal government as is. I see a lot of things that happen in the background that we, the people, don't get to see. It leaves us confused and in the dark. There's a lot of things that happen that make absolute sense if you have all the information, but we don't have all the information, so it just makes us angry. And vice versa. There's things that don't make sense because we don't have all the information, so we think that they make sense even though they don't. That would be something I would like to see fixed. When I take office, I'll be pushing for more transparency, more openness, more flow of communication from our representatives and all of our leadership in the federal government down to the people. Open flow of communication. That's the secret to anything. Any successful relationship, business, conversation. If you don't talk, nothing gets done. Some inspirations, reasons why I decided to do this. Anyone watching this that knows me personally, this is probably a pretty jarring announcement to see last November that I was running for Congress. This is something I've not really expressed any true interest in at any point in my life. I mean, every 10-year-old wants to be president at some point, but beyond that, there are no thoughts of doing this. The straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, were one, I realized that, hey, I can run. This is an option that I can do. This is not something that I really thought about that I could do. I was kind of under the impression, this says as much about the public education system as it does about my willingness to pay attention in history, but which has changed, thankfully. The actual base qualifications were pretty easily met. I was like, I complain about the things I don't like all the time. I could get in and I could try to make a change. And that's better than just sitting around and complaining, at least in my mind. Some of the people that inspired me to actually make this change, there's a representative out of North Carolina. I won't name him unless he wants me to, but everything I see, he's very calm, he's rational, he's reasonable, he's willing to have these discussions. There's a lot of openness that I just don't see with many other people in office, representatives, senators, what have you. And I saw that and I said, we need more people like this. I can be a person like this. This is something I can do. I've got my best friend is a police officer, and it's something he's wanted to do as long as I've known him. And he still pushed forward even as the country fell apart. There's a stigma against police officers right now. Now's not the best time to get into policing unless it's something you really want to do. And he didn't care. He saw this and he went, I can do the right thing. I can get in here. I can be a good cop. I can be a good person. And he did, and he has. He's been doing great. And that was very inspirational to me. That was you look at the broken system and you say, I don't care that it's broken. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to fix it. My grandparents and my parents have demonstrated time and time again the values of putting in your own hard work to fix a problem. If pass the buck, hope somebody else fixes it. Yeah, sometimes that'll work. And problem gets solved, you didn't have to get off your butt and do it. But more often than not, you do have to pick yourself up and actually put in the work to see the change you want to happen. And that's what I see here. I could sit and continue to vote and hope that somebody else is going to fix these problems, or I could try to do it myself. Some of the other reasons are a little less positive, shall we say. It's you have your inspirations, you have your frustrations. And the frustrations, it's a very long list. I'll talk in summary here, but there's the corruption that we see on a day-to-day basis. There's the problems that we see. And for every one of those, there's probably 5 or 6 or 30 that we don't see that are just as bad or worse. And that's a problem. And that's not unique to the United States. You dig into any country around the world, you're gonna find worms. You dig deep enough. But it shouldn't be that way. And it's an altruistic way to look at it. It's not necessarily the most realistic, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to try to dig up as much as I can find and root out as much of this corruption as possible, because that's what we deserve. There's people that look at the United States as the greatest country on the earth. And we've had periods of time where, yeah, absolutely. And we should continue to be the greatest country on earth. We've not, and there's problems every time period of U.S. history. I like the idea behind the some famous sayings of a previous president. I like the concept, but you look back at any period in American history, there's some glaring issues. I would say the solution is not necessarily to go back to any way, but to learn the lesson, look at where we were, take what's good, continue that, take what's bad, leave it behind, continue to push forward into greatness. Look at the things we can do better. Look at the things we're doing good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it is broke, fix it. So the rampant corruption is a big one for me. Just digging it up, finding it, nipping it where we can. The blatant dishonesty that we see in a lot of people all throughout the federal government. They'll say one thing and they'll say, we hear about rhinos a lot with the Republican Party. There's dinos too, if you want to look at it that way. There's plenty of people that are going to say whatever they need to say to get into office, and they get there and they're just as bad as the previous person, maybe worse. If you say you're going to act a certain way in office, you need to stick to that. And the fact that we have so many people that take office and then they're like, all right, constituents, thank you for voting for me. I do not care about your problems anymore. I'm here to get rich. I said that, and I promise you just thought of at least one person in office that did exactly that, and they're probably still there. And that's a problem. It's not good. Don't like that. So holding our elected officials accountable to the things they say they're going to do is a big one for me. That's one of my pledges, so to say. It should be on my website unless I missed it, is if I say I'm going to do something, I'm at least going to show you that I tried. I might not succeed. You're not going to win every battle, but you should try. If it's one you're going to fight. The lack of transparency in our government, I touched on it just a little bit earlier, but the biggest one for me that just frustrates me every time we have an issue about it is the lump bills that we have. I'm sure there's a more technical term, but that's just how I always look at it, where we're already pushing through a case in point, a COVID-19 relief bill. Let's throw some immigration stuff in there too, because we're already pushing this one. And what sense does that make? They're not correlated. And what that leads to is you have people that have to vote against something because one of these add-ons is in direct violation of something that they're very passionate about. But they have to vote against a bill that would otherwise be a good thing, and then that they have that stain on them forever. Part of that comes from the way that we name our bills. The name of the bill is not always relevant to the content of the bill. There was the renewal of the Violence Against Women Act. There were a lot of people that voted against it because they put a bunch of gun control in there that wasn't necessarily pertinent to the Violence Against Women Act. But now they have this stain on their voting record of, why did you vote against that? Don't you want women to be protected against violence? And that's just the example that immediately came to my mind. But you look through everything we voted for in the past, you're going to find little bits and pieces like that. And it's ridiculous that that is an issue and that has been an issue and nothing's been done about it. There's blatant inefficiencies and inconsistencies and stupidity, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's just dumb. And this is a government. It needs to not be dumb. It needs to work properly. Our government's inability to spend money responsibly is also slightly concerning. The current budget said, I'd be lying to you if I told you I had a fix for that just off the top of my head. I'm going to have to do a lot of digging before I can come up with an intelligent solution. But if anyone tells you there's nothing wrong with the way our government does their budgeting, they're lying to you or they're ignorant. And if they're ignorant, they should be corrected. But clearly something's wrong. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is. I've got a little taste of where the budgeting issues are with my time in the reserves of the Marine Corps, but is a very, very small taste of exactly how bad it is. We have a lot of representatives, and that's not just House of Representatives, senators as well, but we have unrepresentative representatives. We have people that get elected on an issue, on a successful campaign of saying, I'm going to be the best guy or gal for this job. And then they get in and they just close their ears to their constituents, the people that they're supposed to be representing. They don't act as the voice of the people that they are leading, which is the entire reason that they're supposed to be there. And that's, again, unacceptable. We have to hold these kinds of people accountable for their failures to do their jobs properly. Term limits is another big one that, I feel like at this point it's a pretty bipartisan issue. I think everyone can agree that term limits need to be a thing. So why aren't they? And we all know the real reason why. Who's going to vote for, a lack of job security? But I'll do it. I don't want to do this super long term. This is not, my outlook on this is not, I'm going to get into politics and I'm going to be in politics till I'm 70 years old and then get out. No, I want to get in. I want to change as much as I can. I want to get out. This should not be a lifelong career for anyone. This was not what it was supposed to be when the country was founded. This was, your part-time side gig, more or less. You'd go in, you do your congressional sessions, you get back to whatever you were doing before. And we've kind of lost that. I couldn't tell you exactly when. I'd have to go through and dig for it, but Congress spends too much time in session at this point. There's a lot of intentional inefficiencies that keeps them employed, basically. There's a lot of, we're going to take, 6 months to look at this one issue. We're going to look at it, and the House is going to say yes, and the Senate's going to say yes, but, and then it's going back to the House, and the House is going to say no, unless, and it's going to go back and forth, and then it's taken 8 months to decide to repaint the hallways. Slight under representation of exactly how complicated these things can get with the actual content of that discussion, but it's for issues as simple as that, grand scheme of things. The other big one is age limits. If you are 70 years old and you decide, I'm old, so I don't really care about these decisions that are going to have long-term consequences because I'm not going to be there for them. A 40-year-old is going to consider an issue that might have consequences in 10 years a little bit more heavily than someone that's 70 or 80 because they're, it's probably not going to affect them. So term limits and age limits. Again, I couldn't tell you exactly where I think those should be. I'm going to have to do more research on my own and to tell you, 65, 60, or, 2 terms in this office and 3 in others. I would have to go through, and we'll have to go through to break it down piece by piece and tell you where I think these lanes need to be drawn, but they very clearly need to be drawn. There's a lot of dishonor and scandal in what should be very, very, very honorable positions. If you approach this as anything other than I get to serve the people, I get to represent the people, I get to represent the country, it's an honor and it's a privilege. If you approach it with any other mindset than that, you're not the guy for the job. I'm sorry. It's just, if you're looking at this as, oh yeah, I get to go in and, mess around for a few months and go make my money and then skedaddle. No, absolutely not. It's an honor and a privilege to get to hold such an esteemed office, and that is how it should be viewed, both by the people in the office and by the people voting for the people in the office. If you vote for someone knowing that they're just there to get rich, that's not a good look for you either. But I mean, you look at the news. It seems every week, every other week, there's another rep or senator or federal judge or someone that has some new scandal going on. And the decisions that they made 30 years ago, it might be that's catching up to them. It's not always, though. Sometimes it's things they did last week. And that's worse in my mind than the things they did 30 years ago, just because you can't change what you did 30 years ago. But if you're in office and you do something scandal worthy, maybe you shouldn't be in office. Let's see. Things like gerrymandering, the filibuster, other congressional tomfoolery type activities that, again, I'm going to have to go through to figure out how long that list needs to be. Those are just the first two that came to my mind. That's also unacceptable. That we really need to look at. The fact that you look at some of these congressional districts, and I mean, we'll use District 10 as an example. That's the district that I'm in. I live in this pocket of it that's a couple cities and towns, and there's a lovely strip that goes around the city of Austin Major, and then a huge chunk of the land roughly from Austin out to Houston. And it's like, that did they make this map by just throwing a fistful of spaghetti at a map and trace it around it? There's no logic. I mean, there's logic behind it, but it's not good logic. They do this gerrymandering to make sure that the people that get into office stay in office as long as they want to be there, without giving other people a chance to get in or giving people chances to get those people out. And that's not okay. Filibuster, the fact that you just get up there and talk for 24 hours or how long, and that's enough to keep it doesn't have to be pertinent to the bill, but it's enough to keep it from moving forward. Come on, that's the equivalent of, I have the talking stick and I'm not going to give it to you so you don't get to talk. It's ridiculous. It's childish. It's another thing that needs to change. That said, I've been complaining an awful lot about what I don't like. So I'm going to go over some nicer things that I want to see that I think are going to be improvements. I want to see us ditch our reliance on foreign industry for things like our energy and our manufacturing. We haven't had it quite as bad, but with the conflict in Ukraine, we see the energy prices in Europe skyrocketing because they were very dependent on Russian natural gas. And yeah, it hit us too, not quite to the same extent, but it hit us pretty hard. That's a problem. We're a very powerful country. We're a very wealthy country. We have the resources to not be dependent on other countries for energy as long as we think about where we're getting our energy. We might not be able to burn coal and natural gas to get all of our electricity, but nuclear is a great option with enough time and money and effort put into figuring out good ways to do it. I don't know the numbers for the whole country, but for Texas, we get 1/10 of our power from 2 nuke plants in South Texas. The other 90% is almost 650 other forms of energy. So nuclear is expensive, but it's very, very effective. It's going to be your best return on power produced per square mile. I won't go into that tangent too much more, but pushing more into self-sufficiency, not true isolationism. International trade is great. Diplomacy is great, as long as it's within reason. We don't want to cut ourselves off from the outside, but we need to not be reliant on the outside world. We can do whatever we need to do here. So focusing on improved methods of power generation was just the example that had immediately come to mind, but also manufacturing. If you're wanting to start a business and I need to have a prototype of something made, I can get this company stateside to do it, and it'll be $11,000, or I can get this company in China to do it, and it'll be $200. And there's a few reasons for that. Won't get into, but which one are you going to do if you're a startup? So subsidizing these one-off manufacturers would be a possible option for, maybe making that small business owner reconsider, picking an American machine shop to do this one-off versus going overseas. It's little things like that. They add up over time. I won't get too far into it, but our immigration system needs some rework. It's an excellent example of where both sides of the fence have some good points, both sides of the fence have some bad points. We can't just open the borders entirely, but we also can't just nix out our immigration entirely. We gotta meet in the middle on that one. See, touched on budget. That's really all I wanted to cover today. If there's anything you guys want to hear my take on, anything that I just didn't bring up that you want to hear, there will be a contact form on my website. It's stefanmedley.com. And it's also got links to all my socials. I don't use them as much as I should, but I'm working on that. But there's a contact form on there. Give me your questions, and I'll talk about them on the next week's show, and we'll just keep doing that for all eternity or whatever I stop doing this, because I'm done with politics. Also on the website, I've got some very cool hats for sale, amongst other things. If you want a cool hat with my name on it, the proceeds go to the campaign. They're helping me get out and about, get my face out there, let the people know what I'm about, so on and so forth, all that good stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got right now. Burned through that a little quicker than I expected, but yeah, no, that's everything. I did want to thank Stephanie for the kind words. I don't know if I did when she was signing off, but I did want to thank her for that. I don't think I said what party I was running with. I'm running as an independent. I'm not particularly happy with the Republican or the Democratic parties, just states of the parties, and it's third party. It's scary. Don't necessarily view it as third party out of spite and therefore not worth it. View it more as it's absurd that we've been constricted to these two parties. And because those are our only options, we get lots of, I'm voting for this person because I don't like the other person. And that doesn't sit well with me. That never has. You shouldn't have to vote for someone because you don't like their opposition. You should be able to vote your conscience. You should be able to look at your candidate and say, I like the cut of this person's jib. I like the things they're saying. I like how they present themselves. I like how they talk. And I'm voting for them because I think they're a good option, not because I don't like the other option. So I would encourage y'all to get out and run if you're not pleased with the state of things. Just give it a shot. Try. It's the worst that can happen. Worst that can happen is you have to try again next time. But that is why I'm running independent, is I didn't want to run as a Republican because I'm not happy with the state of the Republican Party. I didn't want to run as a Democrat because I'm not happy with the state of the Democrat Party. I've got too many views from either side, and I'm really not too happy with how both parties are being run to be able to associate and be happy, feel like I'm doing the right thing, Yeah, I think that's all. We'll try to get some guests on to talk to at some point in the future. I'll work on that down the line, but that's about all I got for today, y'all. Again, my name is Stefan Medley. This has been Medley's Minute on GCD Network. I recommend checking out some of the other shows. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks, y'all.